Hello, Meoni here, and welcome back to another Tea Time with Meoni. This time we're going to be looking at 5.2, and we're not really going to spoil anything major. Like, there won't be any spoilers for the main plot or any particular, like, bosses in Eden. We'll just be talking roughly about what, is publicly known or is shown in a trailer. So, yeah, you should be fine to actually watch this if you haven't actually completed everything in 5.2 yet. You should be fine. I'll make sure I skip over a few points. So first of all, let's talk about my favorite activity, the activity that will be in the background of the majority of this video, and that's ocean fishing. Where do I begin with ocean fishing? Other than it's a stroke of complete genius by Square Enix. This is something that takes an element of a game that potentially a lot of people might see boring or, inadequately designed for their own, wants and beliefs, and then transforms it into something addictive, community-orientated, sort of rewarding, and the experience is very, very addictive. It's got a very addictive nature to it. You're always trying to get the most score possible, or, say, for instance, you've already got all of the rewards. Perhaps you're going in there for other titles because there are titles associated with catching so many of a certain fish. And some people like to make groups in Party Finder for fishing a certain fish only and not procking spectral currents and rainbow effects. Whereas there are people who are doing that actively and trying to get as many of those as possible to maximize their score for the various mount, minion, and indeed the title of which myself I keep coming back to try and farm for. It's something that I've done a few videos on, and I really, really want to make more videos on it. There's not much more for me to show. Perhaps some of the other rewards, but the other rewards are pretty much all titles and achievements. But I'm probably going to do it anyway, because it's something I've actually enjoyed doing, that I keep doing. It's something you can do every 2 hours in Limsa Lominsa. If you're not familiar, I've done a few guides on this. But essentially, this is something you can do from level 1 Fisher. So as soon as you pick up a rod for the first time, you get this quest, you hand it in, and then you can queue with the rest of us every 2 hours server time and actually enjoy yourself. So it's, how do I explain the sort of experience I've had? It's a cross between scratching off a card, like a scratch card, but at the same time not feeling like every scratch off is a screw over. You've always got some kind of beneficial memory from it. You might have a certain proc, you might have a certain size fish, you might even get some of the other achievements that aren't associated with a direct reward, such as fishing all of the fish in Galadian Bay or something like that. These are small little teaser rewards for the bigger thing that comes at the end, and obviously the more points you get, the more legendary fish you catch, the more of a certain thing you catch, the more rainbows we proc. We get certain bonuses at the end of the trip that tally up and give us a final score. So you can essentially multiply your score by about 80% or more just by being really lucky. And that's where the RNG really comes in. This content is heavily luck-based. So if you're the most unlucky person in the universe, then, it could really be a bad time for you. But at the same time, if you just come back every couple of hours and just take part, it's not really that stressful. It takes about 30 to 35 minutes to do one of these trips in total. It's plenty of time, but not too much time for you to get hooked, so to speak, pun intended, on the actual content. And you want to come back and try and beat your previous score. I myself have had the 5,000 points for the minion. The 10,000 for the mount was a stroke of luck. Honestly, it was a complete fluke. You saw the footage in that previous video. Essentially, I completely messed up halfway through on that rainbow, and my bags were full, so I had to spend 30 seconds discarding fish when I could have been fishing in a rainbow, and I still ended up with the mount. So that run I've not been able to replicate, and I'm kicking myself repeatedly because that was the run. That was the one I could have potentially got my title for 16,000 score on, because of all the multipliers that we got, right? We got the legendary fish, we got all 3 rainbows, we got incredibly lucky, but my bags were full on one of the rainbows, and I completely missed out. It's multiplied, so I missed out on nearly 1,000 points, something like that, because we were getting Prodigal Sons and True Barramundis, high-scoring fish at that point on the 3rd rainbow. And those are like 200 to 400 point fish sometimes. So yeah, especially if they're high quality. But the more I play this content, the more I want to do it, even though I've gone past the point of physical rewards. You know, now I'm just looking at titles. I just want to play the content as much as possible. If you've been down to Limsa, you'll see that there are some people who are decidingly and unsurprisingly taking a toxic route to this, where you have to be a level 80 fisher and you need to have this ability and you need to be able to use this bait in this bait. Yes, I've made a guide on this myself, but it's not to be taken like super seriously. This isn't, you know, this is just casual content. This isn't something you need to go crazy about. Most of it, I mean, 90% of it is RNG. You don't even need half of the things that I showed you in that video to actually proc a spectral current. You can proc it by not using mooch or patience or anything like that, or intuition. You can actually proc these currents without it. It's been proved by many people in the community since I made that video. And honestly, that means that anybody of any level in any gear technically has that ability. The fish are level 1, right? Otherwise, a level 1 wouldn't be able to take part. So it's content based around... I've read that it scales quite heavily with GP, and that's about it. So the more GP you have, obviously, the more fish you can get out of it because of double hook. So you want to aim for at least 800 or more GP in total, because that's 2 double hooks back to back on a rainbow, which of course could be 2 to 4 fish at the end of the hook per hook, which is quite significant on a third rainbow. But obviously, you know, people like myself are using patience to try and proc the intuition buff, because we believe that that's a faster method of getting the rainbows. But it could be completely wrong, because how it's coded is for everybody. So it really depends on your level and just your pure luck. But it is some of the most addictive content I've played, like I say. And it's nice to meet brand new people. It's some of the only content I can think of, bar Eureka, that actually gets people involved no matter what they're doing. But this, unlike Eureka, is available from anybody in the game. I mean, if somebody wants to make an alt on my server and play with me, they totally can. It's something that they can do. Or if they're on Chaos Data Center themselves, they can just use the world visit system, group up with me, and hey presto, we're fishing, even though they're on Cerberus and I'm on Ragnarok. It's content designed around a need to involve yourself with people of all levels, all abilities, from all backgrounds. And so far it's been incredible. I've played with some wonderful people, both in the FC and visiting servers, and I've met a lot of nice people as well. It also helps that I dress like a Namazu when I fish, and most people see that as either a good luck or a bad luck charm. I've had lots of people hug me for good luck, so that's something I fully embrace. Hug the Namazu, you might just get your 3 spectral currents, or not, depending if the whiskers are, twitching for you that day. But yeah, ocean fishing I could talk about for another 30 minutes, but we won't, because it's just fantastic. And I think it's some of the best content they've added to the game. And in short, I really do hope that they see this as a positive internally at Square Enix and go, hey, this is a really good thing we've got going. We need to advance, development towards this now. We need to put more money into things like this. Perhaps they could do something with botany or miner, perhaps a mining one where we go into the catacombs underneath the Ronkan capital in the Raktika forest, in the Greatwood rather, that's been lost to time, and you have to mine certain ore nodes and then they proc a big node. That would be awesome. That sort of content could be very easily designed, especially with the sort of archetype that they've gone for with ocean fishing. So I'm looking forward to pretty much anything that they use their budget for in the future now, if they're focusing on stuff like this, because the more people you can get involved in content and, give people rewards across multiple levels, then the more active that content will be. I've seen more people ocean fishing than I have looking for savage groups. So that tells you something about 5.2. It is the patch for everybody, like I've said before, and that's a really, really good thing for the subscriber numbers for this game. So next up, let's talk about Ruby Weapon. I've done the extreme version the other day, and we've been farming that because we wanted the 485 weapons. They're incredibly good, especially if you've not stepped into Savage yet. That was our personal decision in our static. We wanted to get those weapons before stepping into the first boss of Eden Savage, of which, obviously we're not going to talk about the bosses in Eden Savage, but we can talk about Ruby Weapon. Now I have to say that Ruby Weapon Extreme was really quite impressive to me. It wasn't the most difficult boss overall, but I think that the mechanics that they did put into that fight was surprising and initially quite intimidating. It took us a while to, figure out these things because we weren't looking at guides. We like to go in blind, learn things ourselves and figure out what people have done here that have made those mistakes and learn from them. But I have to say, we did end up watching lots of replays of other groups actually clearing this in the end, because one of the mechanics in particular, the charge mechanic with the claw, was something that we just didn't think about, especially because most of the time we weren't looking at the boss's actual model and seeing that he was raising a claw on a side of his body. And that, as soon as we figured that out, it pretty much slotted into place. And then obviously we had to figure out the placements. I'm going to make a guide on that extreme because I believe that it would really help people. There's a lot of guides out there that aren't really straight talking, and I think that I could offer something that perhaps they don't. And the amount of times we've farmed it now, we've farmed multiple weapons and obviously 10 totems for another weapon. So, we've got a good amount of experience. I've got a decent amount of footage. I think I can break down the mechanics enough to give something nice and clear and actually precise without having to retort to, really crap footage like some people do. I filmed it multiple times to try and get the best examples of each particular mechanic. So we can show those off and probably help you out, because I've watched, and no doubt you've probably watched, multiple different pieces of footage of people clearing this on Twitch via VODs or whatever, or little clips on YouTube, and it really doesn't sink in. There's a lot of mechanics like that, but once you get it, you will kick yourself. It is one of the most simple mechanics in the game for that particular claw phase with the charges, but past that, the fight is an absolute doddle. It's basically a two-fight fight, so there's like two phases to it, and you actually, if you wipe on the second phase, you continue from that second phase onwards. You don't have to do that first phase again. You only get one totem out of it at the end, unlike previous fights that had a checkpoint in them. But that's, they've shortened the fight deliberately. It's not particularly difficult once you get a grip to it. And it's not really a long fight either. It's just that small transition with a cutscene that the majority of people want to actually skip. But on the plus side, you can actually use emotes at that point. You get so confident after so many runs, you just dance away during the cutscene, whilst Ruby Weapon's going all super serious in the background. But yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed that fight. Personally, I don't have the mount yet, but we do have mounts drop for 2 people in our static so far, out of 10 runs we've done the other day. So 2 mounts out of 10 runs, that's not bad RNG and not a bad drop rate. A lot of people are saying that that's a 3% drop rate, but I'm not really that sure, to be honest. It doesn't really feel as low as that, but again, RNG is RNG. There's a lot of RNG in this patch in total, but that's never a bad thing when you have an incentive to actually come back and farm content. But yeah, it's really fun, and expect lots of other videos on Ruby Weapon related stuff. So let's briefly talk about Eden without talking too much about the bosses. And in fact, I'm not going to talk about the bosses in total because some people might still haven't have touched that. In short, I thought the storyline was quite fun. The introduction of a brand new character was quite interesting, quite deep, more deep than I expected. A lot of people are going crazy with fan art over that character, which is always fun to see. I always love to see what people do in reactions to this sort of stuff, especially on the creative side of a community. And there's some really exceptional work out there, artwork, little pictures that people have drawn, or incredible stuff in Photoshop that you can't imagine even how they did. But a lot of people have got a brand new waifu, let's say. And of course, that particular character designed by Tetsuya Nomura, of all people, an absolute legend. So that kind of storyline needs a character like that. And I think the ending of Eden came to a nice end for this particular tier. I'm very much looking forward to the next set of bosses. In terms of the boss design, I thought that whilst a lot of people in the community have criticized Square Enix and said that basically they're just reskins of old bosses, I disagree completely with that. It's the reimagination of certain bosses in the past through the Warrior of Light's distorted memories. You have to remember the Warrior of Light, all funniness aside, has been through some stuff. You know, it has been several years since we've fought a lot of those bosses. We've had lots of, you know, stress, trauma basically inflicted on us through various battles. And, you know, we are basically a veteran during an enormous war that never ends. If you can actually appreciate what your character as a person would be going through with all of those potential disorders, it's not unlikely that we might have disfigured visions of the past, or, you know, a moment's sort of clarity suddenly corrupts and turns into something different, which is what I really like. I really like the idea of taking that old concept and creating a brand new fight with it, creating a brand new model, sometimes smashing some of those bosses together as just one. It's an exceptional idea, and it's one that they haven't done before, but I very much doubt that they'll end up doing this again in the far future. Remember that pretty much at this point in Eden, we've got all of those sorts of bosses cleared now in the storyline that could potentially be mashups of old bosses. So even going forward to the next tier of Eden, it's likely we'll see some original bosses or bosses from the past. A lot of people have speculated that since Square Enix has said it's more Tetsuya Nomura themed than Final Fantasy VIII, it could be essentially any boss that he's designed or anything he's had his hands on in the past games, the single player games. Personally, and I agree with some people, that Ultimecia would be a great boss fight for the last tier of Eden. The possibilities are endless for the last couple of tiers of Eden, and yeah, all we can do is speculate, and I cannot wait to get my teeth into that, because so far what they've shown is fun. The Savage modes look interesting. We're going to be starting that this week with my static on Wednesday, so I'm looking forward to that. Apparently the first one isn't particularly difficult, but onwards past that, obviously, we get into danger territory with something like E8S, which I'm heavily looking forward to as well. So let's just quickly talk about the MSQ, because we can't really talk about the MSQ. I'm not going to spoil anything, but all I have to say about that ending is it opens up more questions than answers. And yeah, I have absolutely no idea where they're going with that storyline, but it did give me a kind of conclusion to what I wanted, but also just opened another page. Like, yeah, this is a completely unknown territory now. Have fun. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the sort of Heidelin Zodiac arc. Zodiac. I think we talked about that in a previous video, but it's nice to see that they're still keeping you guessing. Nothing is quite as plain as it seems. There's always something in the background there lurking. There's some kind of thing in the back of your mind, like, what if this? What if that? Who are we, basically, is the big question. And a lot of that gets sort of answered, but not completely. It's fun. But anyway, let's not talk too much more about the MSQ. It's just great fun. If you've not played 5.2's MSQ yet, go and enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. There's a dungeon included, but a lot of people are having trouble with here and there across the community. But it's still fun. It's a lot of fun. And once you learn the mechanics of that fight, it becomes a doddle. So yeah. So let's talk about the Beast Tribe. This is another one of my favorite additions to 5.2, easily. But that storyline is just amazing, with the Qitari and the Serpents of Ronka, with the subterranean tunnels, and oh, it's just amazing. Like, I've enjoyed every minute of that. The rewards so far have been great. We've got a minion, and we've also got a rocking chair. I believe that we're getting a second minion on one of the ranks as well, so presumably like rank 6 or something, maybe even rank 7, I'm not sure. And then eventually we will get this incredible sort of like, a way to describe this is like a California roll, like sushi, with a Serpent of Ronka in the middle. When I told that to people on Discord, they were like, what? But yeah, it's actually in a vase. So there's like a Ronka stuffed in a vase, and that's the mount that you get at the end. You actually see it on a few of the quests if you've been doing it recently, where you have to basically mount up and go and sort of blast music at people. It's really bizarre, and I love it. Every little tiny bit of it, it's fantastic. But yeah, For some reason, I had this vision in my mind that it's like a sushi roll with a ronka in the middle. Don't ask. My mind works in mysterious ways. This is the reason we have the bosses we have in Eden, okay? Because my Warrior of Light is just completely derp. But yeah, the Qitari is a lot of fun, and it's a great opportunity to level your gatherers, of course. Now, included with that is ocean fishing, which is amazing for leveling. But once you hit to level 70 with your fisher, which you practically get given if you do the ocean fishing, you know, for a few days, then you're able to do the Beast Tribe at level 70 and above on a gatherer, and fishing's included. I really quite enjoy it. It's pretty quick. You're not really messing around during it because they've added a lot of quality of life changes, such as with the gathering nodes now for quests. You actually see them put on the map so that you don't have to guess where that node will be. A lot of people have actually talked about that maybe being a little bit too handheld, like holding your hand a bit too much. But it's a daily quest, so I don't really see the problem with it. It's sort of a thing it is, you know, it's pure quality of life at the end of the day, the ability to see where you need to go and gather. So I don't see the major issue with it. If it was like that for every other node in the game, then it'd be different. But at the same time, you have tracking abilities that show nodes on the minimap. So it's not really any different. It's just meaning that you don't have to press a buff. I don't know. People are strange creatures. I've always said that before. But yeah, the quality of life changes for gathering makes my life easier, at least. And I have no problem with it. The Beast Tribe is fantastic. And it really is the season of gathering. It really is. So I'm looking forward to, I think in, less than 2 weeks now, we're getting 5.25. Of course, we'll be covering that in its entirety. We're getting the new Ishgard Restoration tier. So the second part of it, which I believe is going to be looking at the residential area for Ishgard, which is all the hype. I want to see exactly how that unfolds. We're getting the new version of gathering only diadem, so more gathering content, a gathering and crafting sort of additions across the board, including those expert recipes, lots of other new stuff as well. It's going to be just a plethora of people hanging around in Ishgard and Limsa Lominsa doing fishing or, you know, just gathering stuff in general. It's going to be a lot of fun. And meanwhile, you've got a decent Savage tier that a lot of people admittedly have worked their way through quite easily so far. But E8S does seem to be holding some people at bay. There's only, I think there's about, 40, 50 clears in the world so far. So it's not the hardest content in the world, so to speak, but it's not the easiest either. So I think they've designed it quite well. They did say that this part of Eden was, harder than the last tier. I've heard a lot of people attest to that in the later stages of fights, but obviously early on you don't have that experience. It's always got to give you that sort of idea that you're letting yourself into something easy, and then it just turns around and slaps you in the face. So that's the best way to go for that content. They did say recently there will be no ultimate in this particular patch cycle, which, you know, a lot of people are a bit unhappy with, let's say, to put it mildly. Personally, it never bothered me anyway, because I've not been able to be at that point. I'm not at that skill level, or indeed certainly not at that progression level to take part in it. I wish I was, but I just don't have the time to commit to that, as you can probably imagine, and most people would fit into that category as well. But yeah, it is unfortunate for people who wanted that from the patch exclusively, like from 5.3 or something, but it's not to say there won't be one in Shadowbringers, but we just don't know when that will be, and not for the foreseeable. And 5.3 is quite a long way away, the other side of this year. I would imagine, what would that be? Sometime September? Maybe even as late as October? Maybe not. Maybe it'll be earlier than that. But either way, it's a fair distance away, and there's no ultimate included in it. So yeah, it remains to be seen what we get at the end of that. But I'm really hyped after seeing this patch and playing through what I have played of it. I'm looking forward to what happens next in the MSQ. I really want to see them add more content to stuff like ocean fishing, stuff that we can do on the side that actually has a goal to it, that we have something to work towards. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, like the idea of going out there and fish on a boat for 35 minutes with a group of strangers and, you know, try to proc currents, and then people get salty when they don't get them. But it is a lot of fun if you take it from a perspective of just go out there with the intention to meet people and have a laugh. And then you never know, your RNG will probably smile upon you, and you'll probably get some spectral currents. The saltiest people are usually those who have like, oh, there's no spectral current on the first boat, I'm leaving, and then suddenly you get spectral currents as soon as they've left. That's happened more times than I care to laugh about right now, but collectively people on the boat just laugh out in chat or in shout chat saying that that person was the reason we didn't get a spectral current, and I'd like to believe that wholeheartedly. But yeah, patch 5.2, fantastic. So what's coming next for the game? There's lots of hype about the potentiality for new Mog Station items. A lot of people have been talking about the potentiality for the Peacock mount and Peacock outfits, which I believe that they're actually thinking about releasing pretty soon internally. So that's going to be quite fun to see those. There's also a few other items that people have been linking about that we can't really talk about because they're not, publicly supposed to be public knowledge anyway, that potentially might be on the Mog Station as well. And we've got a couple of Mog Station updates probably coming soon. I think we've got one tomorrow. So if there is any new Mog Station items, you can be sure that I will be one of the first to actually record them, because I just throw my credit card at the Mog Station all the time. So you guys don't have to necessarily, and give you an estimate of what that thing is like. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Apart from that, obviously, we're all waiting for 5.25, because in 5.25, not only do we have the next chapter of the Ishgard Restoration, but we have the relic weapons for combat users, and we have the Sky Builder's tools. So we have essentially 2 sets of relics to do if you do crafting as well as combat stuff. It is sure to keep us busy for at least a month or so. I can guarantee that. It will be quite eye-opening to have that amount of content. I'm still working my way through 5.2 stuff, and there's more to come from it. The patch is absolutely enormous. If you were to put 5.2 and 5.25 together, since they're only a couple of weeks apart, then you'll realize how deep and immersive this content is. And for an update like this, it just goes to show where Square Enix are putting Final Fantasy XIV. It's at the forefront of their attention, and it's really lovely to see that they are developing such passion projects as ocean fishing, as little gambles. Not many games do that. They don't like to gamble with new tech unless they've tested it and people have given their feedback, or ideas have gone from just a concept phase and then a stringent review stage. Square Enix are more like, yeah, let's put that in the game and see what happens. It's fantastic to see. It really does feel quite nice. So I'm looking forward to anything that they bring out in the future. But yeah, let me know what you think about 5.2. I know I've rabbited on a little bit too much here, but my passion for this game is growing every day that we get to experience it together. And the more stuff we get to do together, the better I think this will be. So yes, let me know what you think. What was your highlight of 5.2? Have you tried any of the stuff I've listed? Perhaps you've been doing Savage content. If so, how do you rate it compared to the previous tier? Let me know below, and obviously try to keep it civil in the comment section. We're not going to be shouting at each other or being rude. We do have obviously some banned words, and if your comment does have a banned word in it, usually it's out of my control because it will auto-censor you and probably block you from a comment section. So that's kind of out of my control. So try to be civil to each other, be cool to each other, dudes. And hopefully you get as many rainbows as your heart desires on your ocean fishing. And hopefully you get that mount soon. Thank you kindly for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Oh yeah, and obviously we have a Discord if you want to go join that. And we have a free company on Ragnarok. So come along and join with your characters, and we'll have some fun.